Welcome everyone to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. It was an extremely busy week at the National Assembly as the much anticipated public hearing on the tax reform bills were concluded by both chambers. It was a smooth and peaceful process, evident of the amount of work that was done in the background. While just about everyone who contributed during the hearing seems in support of the bill, some still seize the moment to highlight areas of interest and concern to them. The laws which these bills seek to repeal were also made public as well. Perhaps of significance is the concern raised by the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, indicating fears of possible repeal of the Customs Act. Here's a report on the tax reform public hearing held at the National Assembly this past week.
The public hearing on the 4 tax bills commenced in the Senate. The bills comprising the Joint Revenue Board, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, the Nigerian Tax Administration Bill, and the Nigeria Tax Bill have generated concerns across the country following its introduction last year.
If you keep on doing the same thing over and over, you will never know the advantage of reform. Today, we choose to leave behind outdated tax practices and bureaucratic bottlenecks spreading its wings over the tax administration in Nigeria. So we must begin to think out of the box to bring up a robust, transparent, and a conducive environment for government to bring revenue. This is the future of Nigeria, this tax reform. We must get it right. That's why I said all oversight functions must be closed until we finish with this business. We are not in a hurry. You can see we started from October. We don't have a position outside the bills. Discuss clause by clause. And then the chairman and his committee members will collate and bring for our consideration.
In a surprising turn of events, the once highly contested tax reform bills received unanimous backing.
We are NNPC Limited. We are the largest taxpayer in the country today. Our industry contributes the largest contribution to revenue from taxes. And therefore, we are the happiest people seeing this tax law coming in place, bringing every legislation in one basket, and not only that, bringing in a significant number of reforms that will bring simplicity, efficiency, and also transparency to the tax system and the tax laws in our country. And today, what this means is that we are seeing a single tax book that we can relate to and we can work with, and we are planning with it. Chairman, I can confirm to you that not just NNPC, the entire oil and gas industry is happy to have this reform that is coming at the right moment today.
As the economy grows, so we must arrive at, we must modernize our tax laws, enhance compliance, broaden the tax base, and create an environment that fosters investment and job creation.
However, there were a few concerns.
One area that we feel that this committee will address is the area of VAT distribution to subnationals. I would like this committee to adopt and listen to the Governors Forum on that.
Why we are here also today is to, clarify the perception that the North is against this bill. It's not true. And please, some of these bills that are very beneficial to the country, we should not politicize it. Thank you.
Meanwhile, it was a full house when the House of Representatives commenced its 3-day public hearing on the 4 tax reform bills on Wednesday. The session began with the chairman of the House Committee on Finance highlighting the tax laws which the new bill seeks to repeal.
The Companies Income Tax Act 1979, the Value Added Tax Act enacted in 1993, the Personal Income Tax Act enacted also in 1993, the Income Tax Authorized Communications Act enacted in 1966, Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Act in 1999, Industrial Development Income Tax Relief Act in 1971. Petroleum Profit Tax Act in 1959. That was the year I was born.
The hearing was declared open by the Leader of the House, who represented the Speaker, and submissions were received from invitees.
It will be of great benefit for this committee to consider making exports from Nigeria to be zero-rated. That way, exporters from Nigeria will be competitive globally.
Not unexpectedly, the proposed increase in value-added tax was also a concern for some participants.
The TUC rejects the gradual increment of VAT from 7.5% to 15%. Our reason is simple. Increasing it will place additional burden on Nigerians, many of whom are already struggling.
The Nigeria Customs Service, in its submission, raised jurisdictional conflict issues with the proposed Nigeria Revenue Service Bill.
The Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill 2024, Section 1, it provides a legal framework for the administration of taxes and revenue under any law, where Section 42 defines tax. So this particular section subsumes everything that is provided under Section 3 and 4 of the NCS Act 2023. We should encourage collaboration, integration of operations between customs and the tax authority, not to abolish customs or not to repeal a law because we want to do another law.
It was yet another full house as the public hearing of the House of Representatives on the 4 tax bills entered its second day. Submissions were received, with participants highlighting areas of interest and concern to them.
The bill excluded tax waivers on profit from manufactured exports between 2019 and 2023. The value of manufactured export deteriorated from 6.7 billion to 1.6 billion, partly due to inadequate incentives for our exporters.
Do we really need these institutions? TEFCON, NASS, and NIDA. Everything you look around the world, people are actually expanding their industrial base. Technology is important. There is no way you can now kill our own institutions that are supposed to make us export finished goods.
For the Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, some provisions of the bill appear draconian.
If you look at Section 68, 63, Section 141, Section 202, all of them speak the same language of supremacy of the bill to against any other bill. This is our military terms and it should not be acceptable. The government has 2 free trade zones which they built. You are free to convert your own to export zones. But when you license people, collected $60,000 annually from them, and also $10,000 for each enterprise to pay. You take 1% FOB. You collect customs duty and VAT when they trade in the free trade zone in the municipal.
You produce in free trade zone. Anything you sell to custom area above 25%, we gave you liberty of 25%. Though the law says that when you produce there, you should export. But when you decide for any reason, whether there is scarcity or any reason, you want to sell, you can sell to the tune of 25% in custom area without any taxes. But any day you sell beyond that 25, you will be subjected as if you produce it within custom area.
There is no law today, not the NESS Act, not the Oil and Gas Act, no other law that says when you bring it to the custom territory, you can sell without paying taxes. And there is no country where they're doing that.
Mr. Oyedele further addressed concerns around the inheritance tax.
This provision is not even new. It has been in our tax laws since independence. As we speak today, this provision is in the Personal Income Tax Act. This law was already in place when in 1979, the military introduced inheritance tax. If this was sufficient, they would not have introduced another law to impose inheritance tax.
All right, now, while the House completely suspended plenary to focus on the tax reform bills, the Senate proceeded with plenary. It wasn't surprising to find the Senate revisiting the altercation that happened last week between Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. The conclusion was to refer the matter to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. Here's a report.
The President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, led lawmakers into the chamber for the first plenary of the week. It was evident that tensions from last week's verbal altercation had not been fully settled, as the Senate spokesperson in a matter of privilege reignited the matter.
Some people, a section of the public, are now narrowing it to Mr. Senate President versus a senator, which is not so, because our guiding rules, which is our testament and our catechism, our own Bible and our own Quran, which we all subscribe to religiously, embodies and epitomizes the whole Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Any action against it is an action against the Senate. And where there is sin, there must be penalty.
I am not against Natasha. I'm not for anybody. I'm just saying that the Senate is an institution. And that institution needs to have at its dashboard integrity.
One of our colleagues, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, being asked to move to another seat, is nothing that has to do with gender, is nothing that has to do with hatred, is nothing that has to do with any form of malice. We have a committee that is in charge. Whatever alleged, refusal to obey our rules or display of lack of strength of character, but the committee also has a responsibility to ensure that the privileges of the affected senator are also protected.
By consensus, the lawmakers agreed to probe Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan while passing a vote of confidence on the leadership of the President of the Senate.
Those in support that the disorderly conduct of our colleague, distinguished Senator Natasha Uduaghan, we referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges for necessary further action. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, the Senate's Ad Hoc Committee on Ways and Means is accusing the Central Bank of Nigeria of frustrating the investigation into the 30 trillion naira Ways and Means advance and the Anchor Borough scheme under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. At a meeting with consultants and CBN representatives, members of the Ad Hoc Committee expressed their frustration over the failure of the Apex Bank to provide crucial documents required for the probe. The committee, which was inaugurated a year ago by Senate President Senator Godswill Akpabio, stated that the delay has significantly stalled progress on the investigation. Chairman of the committee, Senator Issa Jibrin, criticized the CBN for withholding vital information despite multiple requests, revealing major infractions with the preliminary reports of the CBN.
We've been compelled to make available this interim report to the Nigerian public, so that they know that they let them know where the problem is. And the problem is that the Central Bank of Nigeria has denied us consistently the documents that we need to complete this assignment. That is the truth. I was at the CBN sometimes ago, which ordinarily I wasn't supposed to do. I met the CBN governor. I met Bala, the deputy governor, and they promised that nothing came out of it. So let the Nigerian public know that this job has been stalled, this assignment has been stalled by the Central Bank of Nigeria. They've denied us the relevant documents to proceed with this job. Nigerians will judge you. But having said that, we are legislators, we will not back out. You've heard my colleagues. You must avail us or avail the consultants all the documents that they require to complete this assignment. The Nigerian public may be thinking that we have gone to sleep, and that is not the case. This is a major assignment that bothers everybody. We want to know how these monies were utilized. Okay? We want to know how these monies were utilized. Preliminary reports shows that there are major infractions, especially on the part of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Welcome back to the Gavel. It's time now for the breakdown with the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center plaque. The focus is on how Parliament and indeed Nigeria should respond to the cuts in aid from the United States.
USAID has indicated that it would cut back on funding. Indeed, it has paused funding the Trump administration, and I think it's really within its rights to do so. After all, it's the US government funds or taxpayers' money. I think the impact, of course, is going to be far-reaching, not just for Nigeria or even Africa, but really across the world. But they've said it's a pause for 90 days, and we'll see what happens from it. But I think also that it's so very important that given that their intervention have been in key critical areas, and most of it has actually been funding of government and government initiatives. Those fundings have been very critical in education, in health, even in other sectors of government activity. And I think that the government needs to respond to fill the gap as it is. We did see an announcement from the Federal Executive Council that a certain sum of money has been put into the fight against HIV/AIDS. There are several other initiatives that USAID has been funding. And it's not just USAID, there are several other multilateral and bilateral development partners who have put in money into several of these areas. There will be a shortfall from the USAID pause. Whether these other development partners are able to fill the gap, I think there would be a shortfall. And I think that the government needs to prepare to fill the gap. The National Assembly, of course, is got the powers of appropriation, and I think that the National Assembly needs to find out where the gaps are. This time I think there's going to be need for proper oversight, because sometimes I think the complaint has been that even in some of the areas where development partners have funded, government still makes budget for it. And so now it's really to be more prudent. The National Assembly, apart from trying to make budgetary provisions to fill the gap, needs to also better oversight budgets that are made so that we are sure that those budget sums are delivered to the critical areas that need it. I think there's been only one public announcement about government intervention to fill the gap in the health sector. There are other sectors as well. The 2025 Nigeria budget was passed after the USAID pause. We have no sense of whether the government has made provisions to fill the gap before the budget was passed, but we expect that this is something that the National Assembly should take very seriously and see where the gaps are. A lot of these issues affect the population, especially the poor, whether it's in education or health or even support of the military on the fight against terrorism. So those gaps are things that National Assembly need to see whether there are actually gaps and what provisions have been made in the budget to tackle it. You would have humanitarian gaps that exist from the USAID pause, but like I said, there are other multilateral and bilateral development partners and even private foundations who are doing work in the area, and the USAID funds may have been just some contribution to all of that effort to government initiatives and support for government agencies that have been working in this area. So I think that it's really going to be the responsibility of the National Assembly to properly oversight where these funds have been applied, what the gaps are, and what steps they need to take to deal with it in terms of appropriation.
Constituency Focus this week is with Honorable Leke Abejide, representing Yagba Federal Constituency. He talks about his constituents and what he's done so far for them, also what he plans to do going forward.
When I was campaigning, I promised my people, I said, for issue of education, I will take it and handle it seriously with my resources. And I said, before I come into government, I want to show you, because I have been doing it from my side, I said, I will pay wide fees across the whole Yagba Federal Constituency. People said it was not possible, that there's no individual that have done that, that it's not possible. And I said, okay, I will not even wait for any election to come. And I did pay it in 2018 for all public schools, and people started taking their children from private schools back to public schools. And private school owners came begging that if I don't add them, their businesses will collapse. That is already collapsing. That was what made me to add private schools, and I paid continuously for public and private schools, and even extended it to another federal constituency next to me, which is Kababunu Jumu Federal Constituency. And that is what I do up to date. Last year, 2023, the Kogi State government took over the public schools, but I still pay for all private schools in the 5 local governments. So this is on education. On health issue, when I came in, I look at, I have 6 districts in my federal constituency. I have Southeast Yagba, where I come from, in Yagba East local government, in Sonlo Aziz, we have Mopa Aziz, we have Amuru Aziz, we have Town Council, and we have Area Council. These are the districts. I look at the healthcare, it was near zero. I said, okay, what I can do for the general hospitals is to equip them with the needed equipment, which I did in 2021. And I make sure all that were needed were provided, and I equip them till today. That is what they're using. When it comes to infrastructures, like building of classrooms, roads, that I have done a lot. It's evident everywhere. And 2022 especially, I look at rural roads, I make sure I open them, bulldoze them, grade them, and compact them. Those that are within the community, those ones that are maybe secondary roads, I make sure some asphalted, some surface dressed. But what I do now, I stop issue of surface dressing because it cannot last. If you spend, even say you spend 500 million now, in 2 years, the road will be washed away, except you go back again. So what I decided to do, if I want to do 1 kilometer, it will be asphalt laid, nylon tarred. There will be no issue of roads in the next 20 to 30 years. And I have started in this my second term. You know, I contested the governorship of Kogi State in 2020. Immediately after the National Assembly election, I began that one. So it took my time. But last December, I started working for this is my second time. And what I do, I started with the empowerment that I promised the women that I'm going to give them interest-free loan. So I disbursed 100 million on the 23rd of December 2024 for women in Yagba Federal Constituency. And as we speak, we are about rounding up that of Kababunu June Federal Constituency, another 100 million coming. Then I'm going back for the farmers to empower them, those who are real farmers, because we know them very well. Also, their own is 100 million in Yagba Federal Constituency. So this is the kind of empowerment. Apart from the material empowerment that you see, I did one mega empowerment in December 2022, where I gave out more than almost 100 vehicles in a day. And then motorcycles uncountable, grinding machines, tricycles, sewing machines, so many of them, clippers, dryers, in the same day.
Well, that's all the time we have on the Gavel. Thanks for watching. Remember, catch this episode and others by simply going to YouTube and searching The Gavel or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.